Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Saturday. It's another beautiful Saturday. Well, it's 40 degrees here in Australia. I don't know what it is in your part of the world. I guess it's cold over some places and not so cold in others. But anyway, hi everyone. Welcome to another live stream. This week we're going to introduce a new guest, which we're pretty excited about introducing. And we're also going to be talking about drum machines. I'm sure there's a few of you who would love to sort of share their experience with that. But while I do, let's introduce the guest callers today. We have everyone here. We'll start with obviously Inky, because she's the lady in the room. How you going, Inky?
All good, all good.
Fabulous. And we're also going to say a brand new warm welcome to Ken. How you going, Ken?
Hey, how's it going?
Perfect.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming. So let's get everyone back. And we've also got live chatties down below. So there you go. It's a cute little sort of arrangement today. Anyway, so yeah, I've been sorry about the stream starting a bit late today, but I've been watching a Liverpool game. Don't hold it against me. It's something that I had organised with a friend of mine for a long time. So you started half an hour late. Anyway, no more excuses. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to go through all of our usual segments that we've got. We've got funny side. Ken, you probably, I don't know if you've watched one of my streams or not, but we do a couple of segments first, and then we kind of get stuck into the real stuff.
I usually catch these streams kind of like in and out, and oftentimes I'll catch them. I'll either be listening to them while I'm driving or something, or if I'm working on something, I'll kind of have it off to the side and like be popping in and out.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I mean, while we've got everyone, before we start our normal segments, I'm just going to show you my little setup here. This is my little setup. I've got DrumBrute, as I promised I would show, and this is the original DrumBrute. This is not the Impact. This is the original one that came out, and I don't know why, but people didn't really like this one, and I think it was because
I can tell you why.
Because the kick sounded a bit naff.
Well, so, I disagree with that, but I can explain some things. I was fortunate enough to be involved in production of that.
Yeah.
So well,
you can explain.
Do you want to dive right into it, or
we can? I think we can have a little quick. I
get excited when I start seeing gear. Sorry.
have a quick insight into why you didn't. We don't like the DrumBrute. Go for it.
So there was a couple of things about that that I would say were so okay, a little bit of backstory real quick. So the DrumBrute was one of the first we'll say mass produced analog drum machines to come out in a long time, right? So there had been some other things, Rhythm Wolf had come out, which didn't get the greatest reviews. There had been just some minor things here and there, but like nothing really came out that was like on like an 808 level of intricacy and interestingness, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think a lot of people just didn't have access to those sorts of sounds. And the original DrumBrute, the kind of the mentality behind it was to give those classic circuits and some new ones and some, not just don't do just 808, don't do just 909. There's actually an amalgamation of multiple different drum machines circuits inside of that thing, right? So you've got an 808 kick, 909 style kick, if I recall. I have mine around here somewhere. And I think there was like a Korg style circuit that's in there. There's a reverse cymbal that's in there. The reverse cymbal is like a new circuit. But the thing that was interesting about it is the 808 kick that's on that is literally an 808 kick. Like it's the exact same circuit. It's a clone circuit, right? And if you put that circuit next to, let's say, the RD8 808 circuit, next to, let's say, like the Rhythm Wolf kick circuit, like these are all the same circuits, just ever so slightly different because traces are going in different directions, maybe some minor differences in components and whatnot. But the bottom line is really, if you, and I've done this, if you line these drum machines all up and hit their kick drums and don't focus so much on knob position but tune it by ear, you're going to find that they sound extremely similar. In my personal experience, the RD8 808 kick is a little bit, it can go a little bit longer, which there is a, so you're exciting a filter when you start that kick, right? And the lower you make that kick go, it's kind of like turning the cutoff on a filter down, right? So the lower that kick goes, the shorter the decay is going to end up being. So if you go past a certain point, the kick it's not going to be able to infinitely sustain like that, unless it continues being properly excited. And I think people really wanted that 808 sound from a record and not so much that 808 sound from an 808, right? Because 808 sounds from a record, you're talking about sending it through a Neve console, you're talking about sending it through compressors, you know, beefing it up, that sort of thing. Whereas this was literally that sound, and you ended up having people that were like, oh, well, you know, I don't want to have to process stuff, and, you know, people get lazy, that sort of thing. The other side of it is the other kick, the 909 style kick in it, didn't go as low as it could have, right? Now, that one I will fully agree with. I think that kick should have gone lower. So, and there's reasons for why it doesn't go as low as it should, that I'm not necessarily going to get into, but I will say that the vast majority of that thing, in my opinion, sounds amazing, and it sounds like how an analog drum machine should. But if you take the DrumBrute Impact and compare it to that, the DrumBrute Impact is more the sound of a modern drum machine, whereas that one is more the sound of a vintage drum machine, if that makes any sense to you.
All right.
Like the Impact, the kick has like that punch and that that curve that sounds like it's already been compressed. You know, like the Impact kick is one of my favorite analog kicks because it's huge and you don't have to do much to it.
Yeah.
Whereas the DrumBrute one, you kind of treat it, you know, you got to treat it like a vintage drum machine, really, like as far as how you process it.
So with this, I'm going to go through this later, but I've actually got my 808 kick, which is the first kick, or kick one they call it, and I've got this going through an Elektron analog drive circuit. So this is one of the common things that people did with 808s. You know, they used to drive the kick to give it more warmth, to give it more grit. And if you take that off, you can hear some massive difference just between the two. So that's one of the things that it just really just needed, even if you don't put it through a compressor, if you don't put it through EQ or anything like that, if you just put it through a very basic drive circuit, that's all you really need to do to it, and that will just solve a lot of people's problems with the, you know, the DrumBrute. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to pause on that for a sec, and we're going to hit our little segments first, because believe it or not, some people actually like these. And let's get it started now. We're going to roll the stinger with Funny Side. Okay, welcome to Funny Side. Now, for those who have never ever seen Funny Side before, this is where I kind of look at memes for the week and I sort of find things that are funny. And in some people's opinions, that might not be true. But anyway, I thought because it's starting to get into Christmas, there's a lot of these memes coming up at the moment. And I just think, well, we've got to have a look at these. So, you know, there was the I hope it's a synth, and there was another one, I hope it's a synth. So these were starting to come through. And then of course you've got another one, I hope it's a synth. Can you guys see the theme coming along here? But then, you know, let's get to the oh geez, we've missed it. One second. When you're doing these setups for your videos, you should always remember to save your setup. Deary me. Okay, here we go. And this is the one that really should do the punchline. I'm not saying anything, just read. I told Santa she wants a Timberwolf for Christmas. Is that really making people upset now? Anyway, that is the memes for this week. And on that note, there's actually some... where are we? There's actually some nice news coming up. So let's go into the news. Roll on that. Okay, that's not the news. I just thought I'd leave that up there just because I like to troll. The news, obviously, this week, and geez, you'd think that Behringer would be sponsoring people like me, but they're in the news again, aren't they? And this time they're in the news because they're making a Uric case. And I don't think this is their first Uric case, if I remember rightly. I thought they already made a Uric case. But anyway,
they've got the ones that they use for the neutron and all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just basically that gutted, I guess.
That gutted, yeah. So this one is, you know, it looks similar to another case that is out there, and it's got a few people annoyed. So, you know, if you've been watching or reading the interwebs, there's a few people that are annoyed. I think it's the Tip Top Audio one, isn't it? That looks very similar to this.
So yeah, the Mantis, which I don't know, like I didn't particularly want to get too much into this because it's been like all over Facebook.
Yeah,
but Mantis wasn't the first one to do that style case either. So
no, it's and there's also some differences.
It's actually
as well.
quite different.
Yeah, there's some differences.
Yeah, there's. It's one of those things where it's like, if you wanted to really get picky about it, I mean. Tip Top is also the ones who patented the stackable cable, which the stackable cable is basically, you know, like a banana plug style cable just made into Uric connection. And a lot of people were really upset about that when it happened. Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, if we're gonna get upset about this stuff, like, come on. I don't know. To me, it doesn't really. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and you know, and they've gone out. Tip Top has gone after other manufacturers who've done that design, and you know, that made their own stackable cables, and gave them cease and desist and whatnot. And it's like, I don't know. To me, that's a little bit ridiculous. But either way, it doesn't have the IO on it, which makes the Mantis case really interesting. The stand is totally different. You know, the slope is similar, and that's about it, really. The fact that it has a slope and that it's 2 rows, but the length is totally different. The materials look different. You know, the stand setup is different.
Yeah, I
don't know. And I'm not really trying to be like the Behringer Defender guy. Like I have zero interest in being that guy. But to me, it's like,
I don't think you need to be.
I'm very much the guy who's like, don't put companies on some absurd pedestal, any of them, you know, because they will all break your heart. So, I'm like, take them, take each product as its own and just go from there and just be happy. You know, if the companies want to fight about it, let them do with it.
And if you love it, then, you know, enjoy it. And if you hate it, then sell it. You know, it's not the end of the world, is it? So, but the rumor I've heard with the rack case, just so we're on the same page, is that it's going to be around. Well, it was going to be around 149 US and euro, and then a spanner came in the works, and they're now arguing about whether they should have the rails or whether they should have the slidable, the little slidable. Nuts. Now, if they do with the slidable, you know, nuts that you can move across, it'll end up being 149, which is what they originally said that was going to be. But if they do the rails, it'll make it probably more around the 200 sort of dollar mark. So it depends if that's something that's important to you, money. That's something that's happened just in the last 24 hours. Yuli's actually put a post up about that. So anyway, that was. Let's just go back to that graphic again because we were sort of off of it.
Do you guys have much Uric?
I've got nothing like you. Absolutely nothing like you.
Well, no, I just mean in general.
I do have Uric, yeah. So
how many cases do you have?
I've only got one. I've got the what do you call it? Rackmount, the two row one, yeah. So
and that's threaded.
And that's threaded. Yep.
I've been looking.
I'm just wondering if any of you have any experience with sliding nuts and the irritation that is involved with that.
Well, yeah, because I've got the Behringer modules, and I don't know if you've ever pulled those, like the neutron out of the neutron's case, and then you try and put it back in again. It's an absolute nightmare. So the rail for me is definitely, there's a positive to it, but the only negative side of it is if you get some of those weird HP type modules that don't quite fit, and then you've got a, and if you've got a rail, then you've basically, it's got to conform to where it sits on the rail.
I have a strong feeling about that.
Yeah.
So my strong feeling about that, I'll see if I have one. I'm sure I have one just laying around. So my feeling on this is pretty much every module, in my opinion. So like, I'm just gonna, I'll hold this up, right? See if we can get, hold on, where am I at? Okay. So if you could see that, that's an oval shaped hole there instead of a straight circle hole.
Yep.
Like next to my thumb. I know it's hard to see in this camera. But anyway,
Right.
in my opinion, all your rack modules should have that shape on it instead of a simple circle, because that does away with that argument at all. You know, because then you can slide your module left and right. Yeah. And you have about a millimeter or two to move left and right, and it solves that problem. Now, there are a lot of modules that I have that don't have that, and it's just, I'm like, man, why did they do that? Like, just do it. Just put an oval hole in it, and everyone's happy, like, regardless of what style you have, you know?
Yeah. Well, anyway, speaking of the Uric stuff, so as we know that Behringer did sort of, you know, launch this case, and they had a, you know, I'm not going to play the video because I think everyone's seen it, but what they did in the video, and this is actually, I was one of the first people to notice this, is they also on purpose leaked that they've actually got these Uric modules as well. So you had to be pretty sort of watching it pretty closely, but there's a screen grab that I grabbed out of the video, and there's two modules there. I think that one is a mixer module there, and one's an envelope generator. Now these are kind of like Moog sort of style modules, and then I think there was this one was blatantly obvious. So there's a voltage controlled low pass filter there, and there was another one, I think. So this is screen grabs I've grabbed. So we know now that they're going to be releasing these modules, but this isn't really news anyway, because we knew, I think they announced ages ago that they were going to release modules. In fact, there was this that you could always look at on one of the modules.
I was literally just going to that website to pull that up.
Yeah. So that, if you're looking at that full screen,
a lot more now.
If you look at that full screen, you can see there's a stack in there. Now that wasn't, I believe that's been up for about a year or so, that thing. So, you know, so we now know that they're going to be doing a rack. They've got their modular, you know, neutron, all of the synths that they've brought out that are semi-Uric. They're all going to fit. You can fit two Model Ds or two Pro ones or two. What's the other one that they do? K2s. You won't fit two neutrons, I don't think, because neutrons are wider. But you'll definitely fit the Model D size ones across. You
put them one on the bottom row, one on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is actually pretty cool, because the Rackbrute that I've got is not as wide as this. It's I think this is 180 or something.
The Rackbrute is like 80. I want to say it's 89 or 88 HP. Yeah. Something odd like that. I forget. And the power module is actually 5 HP, which is like kind of taboo to do a. Yeah, it's kind of taboo to do a non-even number space. Yeah. But shoot, I was gonna say something. No, I forget what it was. I don't know. It's early in the morning. I've got a slight hangover.
That's all right. Let's move on. We'll keep going. There's some more news anyway. So there's this news as well. I like little projects like this. This is a little DIY project that's just come out. This one's called Little Synth, and you get it as a kit. And it's got CV, which I like. So, you know, this is pretty cool. This is kind of like, you know, almost like that Arduino sort of stuff, you know, where you... but what I like about it is it's got a bit of CV in there. I don't know if they've open sourced the actual synth itself, but you get it as a kit, and you've got to solder it and put it together and everything. So now, if I remember rightly, it was around about €40, $40 or 50, somewhere around there for that. So Little Synth is that one.
I want that. I want that. I don't even know what it is when I want it. I love silly
little
things
knickknacks.
like this.
Yeah. So you can get that. You can order it now. So I'll put a link in the description below once the video is replayed. But just so you know that's how it will come. Guys, this is the dream.
Doing that kind of stuff.
This is the dream.
I love
this is
doing
the reality.
DIY stuff.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I love that stuff, man. And realistically, that kit right there, if people are they want to get into building their own modules and kits and the the DIY stuff, that kit right there looks like a great starting point because it looks really easy and it's very affordable. So if you've never really worked with a soldering iron, I would say take a look at that. That's not bad at all.
Yep.
And on Amazon, you can get these little boards that are practice boards for soldering that are like seriously like $2. And if you feel really uncomfortable with that kind of thing, you can get a soldering iron for like $10 and a little practice thing like that. I do recommend that if it is something that you're interested in doing like more seriously and like want to build a lot of modules and DIY synths and things, I would highly recommend just bite the bullet and get something like a Hako 888 FX, like a decent soldering iron. Might cost you like somewhere around like $65 to $80. Totally worth it. Like it'll make soldering so much easier.
Yeah, I think I soldered something a couple of weeks ago, didn't I, Inky? And I was going
live on air,
live on the stream, which is challenge accepted. But I was talking about the soldering side of it for a bit in that. So I talked about using chisel tip heads and the variable temperature soldering iron. So don't go getting a soldering iron that's one that you just plug into your wall socket. Get one that you can vary the temperature on it. They're not much dearer to get those. More, just it's worth the extra spend. Get a chisel tip because they're good for precision soldering. And I also recommend checking out a guy on YouTube called EV Blog. So double EV Blog. He's an Australian guy actually, and he's got one of the best soldering videos you'll ever see. And it's been out there for years, that video, but he's really, really good. Very instructional. And if you've never soldered before, go watch his video. And I guarantee you'll be able to solder after you've watched that video, unless you're a complete pleb like me. Anyway, we're going to go into the...
Is there a way to share screen in here?
You can, yeah. Now, you'd have to use something like... Do you have OBS Studio?
I do, but it's like I would have to fire it all up and all that.
Yeah, so you'd have to use something like OBS Studio to do it, and it uses a thing called NDI.
And then I would have to use that as like a virtual webcam, which you can't do on Mac. So no.
Okay, so you can't. Yeah, if you had vMix or OBS Studio, you'd be able to do it. Yeah. So
I got you.
But if you want me to share anything, let me know, and I can bring it up myself. But anyway, let's go on to the next segment because we've got one more segment to go. And that's called the eBay scams, deals, price watch, whatever you want to call it. The world's best stinger there. I don't apologise for that stinger. Anyway, right. First we've got... I came across this one while I was just doing my normal daily mucking around on eBay. And you know how when everyone, Big Brother's watching you. Everyone's watching what you're doing, and you get these marketing type feed emails or ads pop up. This one popped up saying that apparently I need to buy an Akai MPC70 Mark 1 in excellent condition. Only one owner. What are we buying? A car from a little old lady who just went down to the shops? I don't know. Anyway, it looks like it's been through hell and back with the cigarette smoke background there. But anyway, £2,800. Now, I think this is starting to get a bit crazy in that sort of price range now for an MPC70. Now, some people will disagree with me. They'll think these things are vintage, they're relics, they're worth holding on to. But I think that's starting to get into the sort of crazy price range. So that was the first one I came across. Now, these kind of have a bit of a flow to it, which is kind of weird. The next one I came across, it's unrelated, but it has a flow. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Now you're looking at 30,000 Australian dollars, which is what, 22,000 US, somewhere around there, for an EMS Synthy AKS. Now don't forget, these things were used by Pink Floyd in Dark Side of the Moon. These things are pretty well sought after. So someone might agree that 23,000 US is not too bad, but you can actually probably make one of these for less. If there's plenty of schematics out there, you could probably pay someone to make you one for less. Yes, you won't be getting the original. You won't be getting an original, but you would be getting seriously something pretty good. I think the guy that actually originally worked at EMS is still around. His name's Robin, and you can buy one of these for about 4,000 or 8,000 pounds or something. So even that's still cheaper. So I think this is a bit of a scam price, this one. So there you go. That's the next one. Now, what else did we find? Okay, so this is where it starts to flow. So then we start getting into synths, where you start looking at things like Oberheim OB8s, and you think to yourself, okay, it's 9,000 Australian dollars. That's not too bad for an 8-voice vintage analog synth, and Oberheim's got a beautiful sound, so that's probably not too bad. So I'd say that's on the pricey side, not so much a scam. So what's 9,000 Australian? It's about $6.5 US, somewhere around there. That's not too bad for an 8-voice Oberheim synth. But then, in the same auction, not the same auction, but the same breath, you come across a rebuilt Oberheim 2-voice SEM. So there's 2 SEM modules in there, and it's like the same price. So there's no rhyme or reason for what these people are charging out there on the internet. So this is kind of what we find, and some people react, some people love this stuff, some people think it's bizarre, they don't understand why I show it, but this is why we show it, because people ask to see it. Now, the one that I watch all the time, as you guys know, is the price of the SH-101, because I chose it. Don't ask me why, I just did. I like the SH-101 anyway. So 2,000-ish Australian dollars is about the going price. It can be cheaper than that. It can be more than that. So that's actually not a scam. That's just, just showing you what an eBay listing looks like for an SH-101 if you're in the market for one. But having said that, you can get yourself really, really into this stuff. And if you've got a login for Reverb, they will actually show you what the price history is like for a particular used bit of gear. So this is a good insight into the SH-101 and how that price has actually changed. I'll just make that a bit bigger for you so you can see it. So you can see it goes from March 17 all the way through to December this year.
I love Reverb.
And that's pretty cool how you can see the good condition to the excellent condition price, and that's pretty cool. I like that. So what I've been doing is just slightly one better. I've been going around and I've been checking both eBay and Reverb, and I've come up with, if I can find it on my computer, December. I always update this every month, and it's December now. So here is December's price watch for a used SH-101. And you can see there's a bit of an upwards trend happening since November. In fact, if you look at it from June as a whole to December, so the last 7 months, you can see there's definitely an upwards trend happening there. Now, what's interesting is everyone said, oh, Behringer are going to release the MS-101. It's going to bring the price of the SH-101 down. Well, look, guys, I can't see that happening. I cannot see that happening.
So little. Clones have so little to do with the price of actual vintage gear, because that's not what people like. 8 out of 10 times, that's really not what they're buying them for. You know what I mean? Like, if someone's going out and spending $3,000 on a vintage 808, they're not like they could go out and get a Miami. You know what I mean? They could go get a Yocto. Like, there's other clones out there. Yeah. And same with the SH-101. There was already clones out there. There's the what is it? The Gilbert. It's not about that. Like, same with the Moog. Like, you had Crow Minimus, you had the Studio Electronics one. These clones are already out there.
It's been out there for years.
All it is a race to the bottom on them. You know what I mean? But that's not why people are buying original vintage synths.
And bring that graphic back up again. Like, you can see. I'll just put it over our faces. Even with Reverb, you can see in the last 3 months it went down and then went back up again. So it's all over the shop. There was a bit of consistency. It depends on whether there's product available and whether product sells as well. And you can see even on eBay there was a massive spike in September where the prices went, woo, look at that. And that kind of does coincide to when Behringer released the MS-101, but it was a bit after, because I think I got my MS-101.
Were these actual sale prices?
So this is actual actual sold prices, and I've gone in and I've averaged them. So if there was 5 or 6 sold in a month, I'll add them all up and divide it by 5 or 6, or depending. So it's an average.
Interesting that the eBay prices were, aside from an anomaly month, they were all pretty much consistently lower than Reverb. That being said, the differences that I've found is that usually when you're dealing with Reverb sellers, they're actual like musicians and whatnot that are actually using the gear, whereas on eBay you kind of never know. It can be just someone's seat of the pants, like, oh, I found this at a yard sale or a pawn shop or whatever. But usually Reverb, it's not so much the pawn shop people. It's unless you're buying directly from a Reverb store, that can be a little bit different. But for the most part, the Reverb people tend to be more educated about them, and which gives you a little bit more insight as to what you're buying, which can be valuable,
Absolutely.
In the UK, Reverb really hasn't taken off, though. It's still kind of secondary to eBay, even for musicians.
Yeah.
I would say that in the US, it's really taking off, especially in the last year. I was fortunate enough to meet the guys who started it at a NobCon a few years back, and I was talking to them about it. Now it's since been bought by Etsy for a decent amount of money, but their whole mindset of how they're doing it, it's really interesting because they were able to build something from a community basis and really make it into a global thing. And I have a feeling that in the next few years you will see it be a more global thing, because now they have they've got Etsy backing it, so you're going to see a lot more cash influx.
Well, I think in Australia we've also got this thing called Gumtree, which is kind of a bit like Craigslist, but Gumtree is actually owned by eBay. It wasn't originally. It was originally just some other entity that started it off. And Gumtree's pretty big in the UK as well, but I think Inky will agree with me here. If you buy stuff off Gumtree, it's a bit like Craigslist. You really are at a lot of risk. We do actually have Craigslist here in Australia as well, and it's just very, very quiet. It's not very popular at all. So really the two safer places to buy used gear online would be eBay and Reverb, which is why I chose to use those two. It's a bit hard to do sort of. I don't even think Gumtree would even let us know what listings sold for. So that sort of stuff is a bit hard to sort of track. But I do get people emailing me and saying, hey, I noticed that you talk about the SH-101 price. By the way, I bought one for blah, blah, blah. And they'll email me or they'll message me through social media or whatever. So I do keep track of some people that way. Like one guy talked to me about 2 weeks ago. He bought one from Japan, and he actually flew over to Japan. There's some famous shop, I think 5 or
the
5th.
One on
Sonic
State.
The one that was on Sonic State, yeah. And you go up through some rabbit warren and climb up some stairs, and there's this massive synth shop, and he bought one through there, and it was pretty decent. So, So he told me he got one for a pretty decent price from there, and it was like, when people say mint, I don't know if I agree with mint, but it would have been pretty decent condition from the photos he showed me.
I swear for the life of me, like it's a kind of cool synth and all, but like I could never see paying more than $1,200 for one of those, and that's like. Now, keep in mind, I'm a cheapskate. I'll be the first person to tell you, like, I'm always nickel and diamond synths and that sort of thing. Like, I'm a cheapskate. But I just remember, like, those things were readily going for, like, $500 not all that long ago. And now it's like, I see these prices and I'm like, it's not that complicated of a synth. It's not like, it's really, I personally like it for bass because it's easy. So I like it for the same reason I like the Sub Fatty, in that, like, there's not too much to get in your way. You know what I mean? Like one oscillator, so you don't have to worry about phase going all weird, and you don't have to, it's just a punchy, tight sound.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I'm like, man, you can do that with pretty much any synth. Like, it's not that crazy to me. And I know, like, the guys who are, like, over the moon about SH-101s will punch me in the face for that, but whatever.
But it's like you say, Ken, the people buying them today are more collectors, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, or people like living like. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go on. No, well, I was just going to say everybody I know who's got one has had one from the day.
Yeah, a lot of those. Yeah, a lot of those people are like buying the gear that like they heard being made when they were like teens, and like they want that gear from back then, you know?
Yeah, that's more or less. It's that reminiscence of the romantic, you know. I mean, like, geez, I mean, I've been listening to music, you know, longer than some of the people that are on my channel, and the music that I listen to, some of the gears that we were even talking about hadn't even been invented when I started listening to music. So I think like an SH-101 came along after I started listening to music. Inky would probably be in the same boat. So those synthesizers were, they still feel almost kind of new to me. It's weird. But when they did come out, they had a bad name for themselves. They came out and they had a plastic, you know, they weren't like raved about back in the day. And in fact, Roland actually struggled to sell them as much as they sold a lot, but Roland thought these were going to be like chocolates and sell heaps, but they didn't. And but nowadays, I mean, geez, Roland wished they probably relaunched it, but apparently they don't chase analog ghosts anymore. But yeah, anyway, so I just thought I'd add that in because when you've lived through it, it's a different perspective to some younger generations who kind of like they almost become fanboys about it, and they don't really actually even know the truth behind some of the gear. So when Behringer released the remakes, even the Model D remake, it's pretty close to the original Model D. If you really want to start just pumping out records and having that Model D sound, it's going to be fine. So, you know,
I mean, in truth be told, though, I mean, if you're comfortable with it, like, dude, Monarch sounds so damn close. Like, I mean, in my opinion, the only way I'm able to really pick it out is, like, in a blind test, is listening to the curves of the envelopes. And that's just minor, and it's because I kind of, like, know certain things about when it was developed. Yeah. So it's like I can listen for, like, a very particular thing. But other than that, I mean, it's realistically, in my opinion, good, like, very good software. I love hardware. I love analog. But, dude, really good software, if you're in a blind listening situation, you can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Especially in a mix.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, Roland brought out those cloud, remakes of their vintage synths, and people were doing blind tests of Jupiters and getting tricked. And, there was a famous one where they brought out so they brought the first plug outs, which was the Jupiter 8, and then they brought the Juno 106 out, and everyone was kind of like, oh, yeah, it's not that bad. But then they brought the JX3P out, and that threw heaps of people off because they actually remade that so close. Yeah, System 8 has got it in there. It's amazing. It actually, like,
I've got a JX3P.
Like you've just got a JX3P. Wow.
Yeah, I just got it. Guess how much? Guess how much? Since we're talking about prices on eBay.
Okay, let's say 600 US.
Inky, what's your guess?
2,000.
$125.
I was closer.
Oh.
What do I get? No. That's a steal.
But it's in really bad shape. It's in really bad shape. Like, I have to do a lot. Like, man, like the back plate is like kicked in. It's messed up. But it works. It plays. So I have it sitting in my back shop. I'm gonna refurbish it, and I'm gonna do the Kiwi upgrade on it probably.
Oh yeah, definitely do the Kiwi.
I want to restore it first. But.
The chorus in that is exactly the same as the Juno chorus. It's got the Panasonic MN3009 chip in there. So
and it's got, I think it's the same filter as the Jupiter 8 if I recall. And the same oscillator as the Juno.
Same oscillator as the Juno.
106, I think.
106, yep.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So I forget exactly, so I'm sure I'll get eviscerated in the chat.
You guys on my channel will know, but this is for Ken. I've got a Rackmount MKS70, which is which is a Super JX basically in the rack. And so the JX8P was the next one that they brought out after the 3P, and they tried to fix a few of the issues that the 3P had by bringing out the 8P. And there's people that say they didn't like the 8P, they like the 3P better, and some people are the opposite. And for me, I like both. I don't really care. But one thing that's the same on both is the way the chorus works. The same on both is the way the voicing works and everything. So it's all kind of very, very similar stuff. Then if you start getting into envelope generators and nitty gritty, then you'll see differences because they obviously changed ICs and things like that in there. But really, at the end of the day, you're still going to get that magical Roland mid to late 80s sound that was, in so many records. So just so you know, Ken, the MKS70 that I've got used to be owned by a guy called Nick Kershaw. So he's got a famous 1980s track, and you may or may not know it. It was a song called "Wouldn't It Be Good" from the 80s.
I had a mad crush on Nick Kershaw. I had a poster and everything.
Is he Scottish or is he Irish?
I don't know. He's quite short though.
He's short, isn't he? Yeah. So I sent him a tweet one day because I had a cartridge in there. It said and Kershaw on it, and I think he's seen it. I've shown her the photo of it, and he tweeted it back. Said, "Yeah, that's my old MKS70. What are you doing with it?"
Oh, wild.
So
it's wild.
But this he actually, the song "Wouldn't It Be Good" doesn't have an MKS70 on it. It was that song was earlier. So the MKS70 didn't even exist then. So, talking about old gear, the JX3P would have been around though. But what I believe he used a Jupiter 8 in that song. So he was a Jupiter guy Roland guy that he really liked the Roland sound. So there you go. Okay. Well, we got through funny side, we got through news, we got through talking about prices. Always good, interesting sort of to get people's opinion on prices. Now, despite while we've got everyone, we've been ignoring the chatties. There's the chatties there. Forget about the socials down below. The socials aren't working today for some reason. It's this streaming software I've got. It's decided to pick up a second network interface on my Windows computer, and it's not letting me log in. So yeah, for me, I can't do the socials below, and I'd really love to. And I'm not going to be dropping network cards out in the middle of this live stream. That would probably be a train wreck. But anyway, let's have a quick look at the chat and see if anyone's sort of saying anything worthwhile to bring up. I mean, obviously, you guys always say stuff worthwhile. Talking about different types of gear and what you bought. Yeah, okay, cool. You're sort of flying along there. And all right, so guys in the chat, what we want to do now is we want to launch the segment which is about drum machines, which is, I've got the DrumBrute here. I mean, I could have literally brought out, between Ken and I, we could set up a drum machine store, the amount of drum machines we've got, and Inky as well. So, there's, we can, let's list a few of our favorites. For me, I'm going to start with, my favorite would probably be the, I'm going to get killed for this, but I don't care, the Roland TR-8. So the Roland TR-8 is sitting behind me over here. It's in my current rig setup. I just like it. I just think it was just simple designed, and I think it's definitely worth every cent that Roland charged for it. And yes, it's digital, and I don't care. So there you go. My second favorite drum machine, and Inky will like this, is my MPC Live. Yes, it's not really a drum machine, it's a sampler, but it's built to really be a drum machine. That's its primary. MPCs were primary jobs were to do drums. That was their primary job. And then the rest of stuff sort of was laid onto it. So really its primary job was a drum machine. And if you look at the architecture of it, it does a really good job of it. Now, one of the things I love to do is I love to sample my other drum machines like this one. And this one's the first DrumBrute that Arturia brought out, and we did have a little bit of a chat about that before. So it's I actually really like this. There's a lot of reasons why I like this, and in fact it's probably why what you said, Ken, before is probably why I like this drum machine. And the fact it is actually really quite originally, like, if you bring it back to when those original 808s and that sort of stuff came out in the early 80s, the sounds out of this are so, so raw and so real that it's basically like an open book. To be able to use this properly, they've built it so that you can manipulate this in the fact that it's got something like 16 or 12 individual outs or whatever it is on the back of this thing.
Yep.
And I'm only using one individual out and the mix at the moment. And the individual out I'm using is the the first kick, which is the 808 kick, and I've got that going through the Elektron analog drive, which is just a nice warm. It's not an overkill sort of drive circuit. It's just a warm one. It's got presets.
Did you get yours cheap?
I got mine cheap.
I gotta ask. Did you get that deal?
I got the deal.
Oh, I'm so mad I missed it.
Yeah, but at the same time, I kind of felt a little bit. I felt a little bit gypped because the reason why they did the deal was because they're going to be bringing out the new model, and I thought to myself, oh, the new model is any better? And then they brought the new model out, and I thought, yeah, it's better, but it's
of the pedal.
yeah. They brought out.
I didn't know that there was a second version of the pedal.
No, they brought out a new analog. What's it called?
They did an analog heat. They did an analog heat MK2, but they didn't do two versions of the drive.
No, not two versions of the drive. They brought out the new analog heat. Yeah, and that's what I. That's what I think they were getting at. They were kind of trying to sort of offload this off their catalog, and
that pedal at that price though is because I think it was like for the US, I think it was like $150 or something, which is a steal for that pedal.
Oh yeah, there it is there, and it's full. So it's so good. It's got MIDI as well, so you can control the whole thing via MIDI. It's got expression, so CV inputs and outputs on it as well. And I mean, it's for a drive pedal. It's probably the most featured drive pedal I've ever seen. This all it does is just drives, but it's so featured. It's crazy.
And multiple versions of drives, and it's just I like it a lot. I think that there's a lot to like about that pedal. Like I love guitar pedals. So.
It's built like a Swedish vehicle too. It's built like a Saab. It's crazy. But there you can hear it there. It's pretty. I can turn it off. There we go. It's on now. I mean, that's nasty. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
Yeah, when you put like diode clipping on an 808 kick, it just sounds so badass.
How loud's that coming through? Is that good?
Yes, good.
You can probably go louder. Turn your main volume up or something. Oh wait, no, you have it on. You have that on the separate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
there
let me
you go. You can hear it.
Bring that up a bit more. It's got a bit of a crunch to it now. Here we go. Whoa. Can you hear the crunch afterwards?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's beautiful. Anyway, so that's what the analog drive does to that kick. If you take it off, it's kind of lifeless. It's not that lifeless. It's not really that nice to say lifeless, but it just needs it needs a bit more, and that's what this is built for. This is built for you to manipulate the sounds. So there you go. Now, while we're talking about stuff, the other drum machines that I've got here, which Inky will say the same as well, is I've got things like Novation Circuit, I've got Electribes, I've got some of the older ones like Electribe ER1, Electribe ES1 Mark 1, which has got the old multimedia cards that you store, and that stuff is getting really old now. I've got the MC-505, which is the old Roland, the new 707's got a lot of interest at the moment, so the MC-505 was kind of what they based that on. There's Volcas, Volca Beats, Volca Sample. So I've got stacks, and I haven't even listed half of them. So what I don't want to do is come across like, oh, look at me, how many drum machines I've got. I know, it's so good. You
should do that though. Why not?
It's not really about that. What it's about, I guess,
especially to drummers.
Drummers. Let's sack the drummers.
Look at how I put you out of work. Time and time again.
Yeah.
8 of you.
But have a look at this one behind me. This one here. This is my favorite.
Handsonic?
This is a Handsonic. This is my favorite. And the reason why it's my favorite is because I'm a bit of a hands-on person. Now, I don't know what you guys are like. When you guys are in the kitchen and you're making coffee, do you kind of tap the bench or tap the sink? Are you a tapper? Do you sort of tap stuff? Do you find yourself kind of pumping out taps everywhere and rhythms and stuff? Are you guys like that? Inky?
Yeah, if I'm drinking a can of cider, about halfway down, it gets crushed and I'm tapping it.
You're tapping it to get the sounds?
I love it.
What about you, Ken? Are you a bit of a tapper?
So my kind of background, the way I really got into stuff was like starting by doing that. Like I started in a punk band originally, but like really where I kind of got into the music industry more seriously was in the hip hop community.
Yeah.
And that was because I was doing a lot of beat battles and that sort of thing. This is back in the day when we used to actually bring our drum machines and stuff out. And I was known for, I was a finger drummer. So like, and this is back before finger drumming got big.
Awesome.
So like I'm very much like all about tapping, and those Handsonics are amazing.
Yeah. So just, I'm not going to play it, but just so you guys know, this is kind of, you know.
If I recall, that one, does that one have the MIDI on it or no?
Yeah, this has got MIDI.
It does, yeah. Because the Korg wave drum that doesn't have MIDI, and that was like, if you like that, the wave drum is another one to definitely take a look at, but it doesn't have MIDI.
Yeah. Yeah, the wave drum is cool.
So you want to track it in audio.
So this here has, basically, it's got a stack of kits that Roland had done. It's all their Supernatural engine. So if you're into all the digital Roland stuff, you know it sounds beautiful. But on top of it, you can actually chuck a USB thumb drive in the back, and you can actually launch samples from the pads. And that then just opens up an amazing world of you being a sound designer and going, right, well, I'm going to tap out on something that's got velocity sensitivity and it's some beautiful pads on there. I'm just going to tap out something that I've created on a SH-101, like we were talking about that before, you know. You could create any drum sound on that, and then you can load it on here and then make the sounds velocity based. So you could have like a, you know, a very short kick and then a long sort of decay kick if you velocity hard. So you can do all that sort of cool stuff with this. And I don't know, for me, if you're doing an electronic performance, I like to be able to add some organic, you know, rhythm into it. So it's not like all just, you know, like a DrumBrute. I love the DrumBrute, but, you know, this is kind of becomes kind of very expected, very on the beat, and it doesn't really have a lot of organic to it. I mean, you can swing, you can do all that sort of stuff, randomize it and that. But what I'm talking about is being able to just bring in some sort of, you know, impromptu stuff into your performance. And you'll notice, like, even guys like Jean-Michel Jarre, when he does his concerts, a lot of his stuff is sequenced, but you'll see he's got a massive big cymbal that he touches with his hand in the middle of his concert. So everything's all electronic, and then he's got this analog, you know, let's not call it analog, but it's, you know, it's a cymbal. It's not electronic at all. He hits it with his hand because he wants to sort of have this impromptu in his performance. And this is what I like about it, the human touch. So for me, like you said, Ken, the finger, you know, the finger drumming, the human touch. Now, I want to go to Inky because I love Inky's setup, and I want her to talk about her drum machines because I know she loves them. So let's just go across to Inky. She's going to tell us about what she's got and what her loves are.
Well, it's a bit like Ken, but I never really discovered the MPC till a couple of years ago, and I love them for creating drums live. You know, that note repeat, do undo, copy, double the tracks, really easy. It's just a dream, isn't it, to write drums on, and the fact you can layer sounds on it is brilliant. Then I've got some mono stations, which are kind of okay as drums. But I quite fancy the MFB stuff. If I was going to, I'm looking for an analog drum machine, and that's the closest I've come to going. Yeah, maybe
MFB.
So that's where.
What about the MFB is appealing to you?
Especially the kick. A lot of the, like you say, need to be put through sort of some sort of drive or distortion. Generally, it's the sound of it. I quite like all the sounds. That's it.
Yeah, I had a buddy who he had the Tanzabar, and I gotta say that thing sounds amazing. My only issue with it was that it was built like, it felt like it was built out of just like really thin sheet metal. Like it wasn't built great, but the thing sounded amazing. Like I love, and at the time I think I've heard that manual is better now, but at the time the manual was like trying to read VCR programming in Swahili. Like it was really overly complicated and not great. But I've heard a rumor that that's been improved. But man, I totally agree with you. I love the sound of the MFB stuff. I think it really sounds good.
The Tanzabar, they've got the second edition out now too, so they've fixed a lot of the problems in the first edition.
And that one does samples too.
Yeah. Yep.
What do we all think of the Vermona? Sorry.
Oh man, the DRM.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Okay.
Sounds great. That thing is awesome, man. Like, and you can actually get those for a steal. The fact that you can MIDI everything and you can use it with, if you get the right stuff, you can use it with modular. And yeah, that's a really, to me, like the DRM is kind of like the closest thing you get to like a boutique drum machine that's also like produced in a way that's like reproducible and like you don't have to like worry about it too much. Like they're built really well. I've got a bunch of Vermona stuff in my rack, and I tell you what, man, like they don't skimp on the materials, period. Like their stuff is built so high quality, it's amazing.
And you can tell because they've
looks
lasted.
like a tank.
They've lasted as well. So
their stuff is honestly like mind-blowing, like the build quality.
Just before we forget, we were talking about the Tanzabar. I just wanted to bring that up so that people can see what it looks like. Because sometimes people are watching the stream, they don't know what we're talking about. So that's the MFB, which are a German, I believe. They're a German company. And Tanzabar or Tanzabar 2. This is the second module. Tanzabar, maybe. With the oomph above the A, yeah. So yeah, you've got what do you got? The digital side, it samples with 3 sample voices, which is pretty cool. With an analog multi-filter.
I would love to have that.
Yeah, so that's kind of heading closer to the Tempest sort of side of things, isn't it? With that digital sampling side. So, now you've got a Tempest, don't you, Ken? So,
yeah, I like your segue. So I'll pull this in. And I also have something else set up right here too. Oh wait, this isn't even the one I was thinking of. Shoot. Well, anyway, it's similar to this, but the Swollen Pickle is a different pedal from the same people here, and it's like my secret sauce for kick drums. Oh, here it is, right here. I highly recommend this pedal because you can get them for dirt cheap. There you go, Swollen Pickle Mk2, and this thing is a really, really great fuzz / distortion to put on drums.
Right.
But yeah, so here I've got the Tempest, which is my most loved and hated drum machine. I am very much like a...
Ken, they're Jim Dunlop pedals, aren't they? The Swollen Pickle. So they're part of the...
Yeah.
Same company does MXR and those sort of pedals.
Yeah, and it's actually... Oh, God, I forget the...
There we go.
I forget the whole story. There's a really great story behind that pedal line. But yeah, they're actually like... They're pedals that are priced way less than what their internals are, to be honest with you, as far as like how they're designed. Like those things are just really, really good. So the Tempest was kind of my pick for this. Now just to touch on real quick what Inky was saying, like, yeah, so I come from like, I started out using MPCs. I got involved with Native Instruments Machine very early on, and I did a lot of work with Native Instruments. And I have, I've done sound packs with them. I did an official sound pack release with Akai for the MPCs. That all being said, I'm finding myself having the most fun these days separating my sampling from my my drum machines. So behind my head, if you could see back here, I don't know if I'm pointing in the right direction. This way. So this right here is actually my modular drum machine. And that's really like my main drum machine right now is all modular. But the Tempest is cool in that you can program kind of like a machine. Like the sequencer is actually really close to, if you have machine, it's like if you had one or two groups of machine. That's what the sequencer is kind of like. The way you pad duplicate, a lot of the features of it are very much like machine. And I really like machine sequencer. So like I like that not having to stop, just kind of keeping things moving. The Tempest to me is just very much like a live performance thing. That being said, I can't stand Curtis chip filters that are in DSI products. Like it's my least favorite analog filter, and that's kind of what this thing is based around. So I actually prefer the sound of the Rhythm MK2,
Right.
but I can't stand the user interface of the Rhythm.
Yeah.
I love the user interface on the Tempest. The Tempest is just like, it's just so immediate. And I want to see if I can kind of adjust this a little bit just to kind of show you a little bit of what I have going on here. I'll move this out of the way, put this on the Hydrosynth, and get this out of the way. But like you're not going to be able to do that on the Rhythm because the pads are horrible.
Yeah.
The pads on the Rhythm just are they're a huge improvement over the MK1 pads, and they're still absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
The Tempest though, it's just really cool how everything is kind of laid out in a way that's like designed to help you jam. Like so all of that is from the Tempest, and that's a drum machine.
Yep.
You know, it's to me that's just insane that you can get that much depth going on. And it's kind of like a sound designer's dream because like everything's right there. You can program from an extremely complex 4-oscillator synth voice for every drum. Whereas like on the Rhythm sounds kind of better in my opinion, but like it's a little bit rounder, fuller sound as a drum machine. But what the Tempest does is the Tempest doesn't give you a template so much. Whereas the Rhythm, it's like you've got your kick drum, you've got your snare drum, you know, and then you can kind of tweak things, you know, in those parameters. The Tempest is completely blank slate for each sound, you know, like you just have a 4-oscillator synth with 2 LFOs. What is it, like 5 envelopes, you know, high pass filter, low pass filter, you know, all that good stuff. And it's just a blank slate. So raw synthesis from the gate, you know.
And I think you can also technically use that as a polysynth too, couldn't you?
Yeah. So I did a video a while back, and I'm bringing it up because like I kind of I've been sort of trolling a friend of mine, Brad from Isla Instruments.
Yep.
So he's working on a product called the SP2400, and he did a product called the ChordBot, right? Which is it lets you create interesting chords and whatnot, obviously. And when I did a video for it, just to kind of mess with him, I did the video with the ChordBot was connected to the Tempest, and I was using the Tempest as a 6-voice synthesizer instead of connecting the ChordBot to a synthesizer, which is what you would expect to do, you know? And he always kind of like he always kind of gets mad at me about that, but it was fun. But yeah, it's an amazing 6-voice synth.
Go, Inky.
You're in good company because I watched a YouTube video with Paul Hartnell out of Orbital, and he's using the Tempest as a synth. He's not really.
He is,
he
is, yeah. So, that's awesome.
You know,
yeah, that's one of the things where it's like so the synth engine in it is kind of interesting because it's sort of like a better version of the Evolver, of the Poly Evolver. Because you've got like all these modulation destinations and all. The engine's actually the digital engine in it is actually cleaner than the Evolver's engine, right? So, but there's goofiness going on. So I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to like the intricacies of synthesizers and whatnot. And if you can you give me a second to show you guys something?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me
to show you a quirk? Do we have time?
Yeah, I'll take you off for a sec. There you go.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do something real quick. I just want to show this because this kind of drives me nuts. So I'm going to.
When do you want me to go on your screen?
Just give me like. Yeah, you can show me now. I'm going to explain this. So let me. I'm kind of like. Oh, I need to move into this mood. I'll see if I can't put my camera in a way that makes a little bit more sense for you guys. Hopefully it won't be too blurry. You're not gonna be able to see it perfectly, I guess, but I should have used my DSLR, but there'd be all kinds of delay because, like you were saying, I can't use the OBS on here, which stinks, but whatever. All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to turn the analog oscillators off, right? And let me turn, we'll actually turn, so I'm just using one, this is just one oscillator that's digital. And what I want to go to is the VS waveforms. And hopefully you guys are going to be able to hear this. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to mute my mic, and I want you guys to hear what I'm doing, and then I'll explain what the problem is.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, hold on one second. I need to take this audio mod off. And this amp, really, I should be on it, initialize sound. But anyway, so the problem is that these waveforms are Prophet VS waveforms that I'm going through right now. And so the Prophet VS waveforms, a lot of the cool sound of the Prophet VS was these really smooth, almost FM bell-like sounds and that sort of thing. And they build them, they sold them, I should say, as Prophet VS waveforms when the Tempest came out. And that's what it says on the site and all that good stuff, right? And now let's turn it for dramatic look. They are not Prophet VS waveforms. They originated as them, but they screwed up and they never fixed it. So if you look at the waveforms, there's like a glitch in the program, right? So I don't know where it happened at, but somewhere along the line, I don't know if it's the chip, I don't know if it was the import process, what it is. Clearly, the VS waveform dropped the sample, and what that means is, like, so in a waveform, you've got X amount of samples, to like sample rate, right? So you have X amount of samples that build up this waveform. Well, it's missing one of each one of those Prophet VS waveforms. So what that means is you could have this FM sound that's like a bell, and it's like a tight sine wave that has like modulation going on in it, right? But if you're missing one sample, that means that the end of that waveform or the start or the middle, wherever it's at, it's going to not line up properly. Like there's going to be this DC offset. So it's going to have like a sharp point, which means none of those sounds are smooth. They all have this buzziness to them, right? Which, if you didn't call them Prophet VS waveforms, it wouldn't really be a big deal. You'd just be like, okay, these are all these buzzy sounds, right? But the fact that that's how they were built, it just drives me nuts. And then when I contacted tech support about it, they were like, oh, this is an inherent flaw in analog sounds. I was like, this isn't part of the analog circuit, dude. Like, what are you talking about? But you can use that stuff to your advantage, though. Like, you can make like really chiptune type sounds, and it can be good for like punchy kick sounds and that sort of thing. But the reason why I explain that is just the Tempest is filled with flaws, has a ton of flaws in it. There's barely enough memory to hold 10 songs in it if you're lucky, and if you program wisely. But it's so fun. Like, it's just super fun to play with. So yeah, that's kind of my feeling on the Tempest.
I like it. They always say
fun is important.
They always say that if you have flaws in a product, can sometimes end up being the things that make that product the most sought after feature. And we've got examples of that in history, haven't we, with synths, and we've got examples of that with other types of instruments as well. So, the Tempest, are they making the Tempest still, or is that kind of the...
I think it's still in production.
It's getting on it, isn't it?
Updating it.
Yeah.
So the latest news on that was that, like, it was left in a pretty buggy state for a long time, and then there was a petition that went out, and the petition was all the Tempest users saying, hey, fix this thing, make it like what you sold us, And Dave Smith company was, their policy for a while was, no, it's feature complete, we're done with this, and the petition went and got bigger and bigger, and finally it was Roger Lynn that stepped in and said, hey, we're gonna fix this. And they did another like 2 updates to kind of get it, they did it was a long beta period, but yeah, they ended up updating it, and now it's much closer to what they were originally trying to sell. There was, it was an ambitious project. I'll just say that. There were some things that originally they were saying that they would have liked it to do that it never really was able to do, like importing its own samples and that sort of thing. But there was never enough memory to be able to do that. But it's such, like I said, it's such a cool device on its own. And it's one of those things that I feel like when it goes out of print, when they stop making these things anymore,
it'll be a classic.
Like people are going to be like, damn, I want one of those, because it's quirky, it's original, and it's cool. Like, and it's very, very playable.
I think like the other thing too with the Dave Smiths and the sequential stuff is his pricing isn't he's not after that sort of Korg market or that that Arturia market. He's got more of a higher end sort of pricing, and the Tempest is one of his more expensive products. And
I think when it first came out, it was like 28.
Yeah, that will actually make it out of reach for a lot of people. So as a result of that, once that they do stop making it, it will actually probably even go up in value again. Usually is what happens with that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, you're not the first to say that the Tempest is quirky, and by the fact of it being quirky, it's going to be probably a classic. So, yeah. Just looking at the chat.
By the way,
yeah,
one quick thing, because she just brought me coffee. I want to say happy 16th anniversary to my wife.
Ah, well done.
Our anniversary yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Happy anniversary. Jennifer, isn't it?
Thank you, Jen.
Jennifer, yeah. Happy anniversary. Yep. From Australia and from the UK where Inky is. So you're getting a happy anniversary from all over the world.
Happy anniversary.
So, what am I? I've been 17 years. So you're a year... Were you 2002?
Congrats on that.
Were you 2002, were you?
2003.
Okay, so I must be coming close to
December
18.
2003, right?
Okay, yeah. I must be coming close to 18
just
years.
the other day. You notice how I couldn't even process it?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. Put a man on the spot with a date. Always happens.
Oh, by the way, there's that.
There's the impact. Yeah. Let's just hang on. Just hold it up again. Hold it up. Keep it up.
I got impact, and I got your favorite Rhythm Wolf.
There it is. Well, which is better though, Timberwolf or Rhythm Wolf?
Wait, hold on. You said Timberwolf? That thing is horrible. I'm sorry. I give no quarter to that. That is a horribly designed.
Where did that
synthesizer?
Where did that thing go? We had it as a meme, didn't we?
Which one?
Was it the Timberwolf? Wasn't it? Yeah, there it is.
I got this too. Bam.
That's it there. That's a Timberwolf, isn't it?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that thing is horrible.
Yeah. Yep. So show your thing again.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. So this is the prototype of the
RD8. Yep.
This is the prototype. Yeah. So this one's actually a RD 808. So that's, who knows? Maybe that'll be rare one day.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I've got a bunch of drum. I love drum machines, man. They're so much fun. Yeah.
Inky, I wanted to ask Inky just a question to put you on the spot. Now I know your favorite isn't the circuit, but what is your opinion of the drum side of the circuit? Because it is pretty much half of what the circuit is, isn't it? What's your opinion?
Well, it's to do with getting the samples in, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And as a workflow, I love it. But some of the best drums I've made is me jumping on a metal grid with a great big rock on it and taping it.
Yeah.
Well, getting that into the circuit is like, I've got to put the computer on.
Yeah.
Then I've got to go into components. Well, I don't have to do that. I just plug it straight into the MPC and hit go, don't I?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm pretty much reliant on the industrial pack, I think, that some dude's done.
Yeah.
they're all right, and you can use them as distortion. But really, the circuits need a bit of help for audioly. Do you know what I mean?
So would you say it's?
I've just put them through the MPCs.
Yeah. So would you say it's kind of more like a secondary? When I say secondary, it's not the right word. It's kind of like a second tier drum machine. Do you know what I mean? Like you'll always have something that will take front tier, and the circuit kind of sits as a second tier or a backup. You know, you might have those little PCM samples jumping in.
So what I've done is, because I like the workflow, is I'm using them to control the MPCs.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And things like that. Yeah.
Stable clock.
And then I've got the other. The MPCs are doing the clock.
Okay.
Because then I can start and stop the mono station and the circuit and whatever's controlling the MPC. In one case, it's another circuit, and then I've got a key step. But I've plugged the circuits into the MPCs and used a bit of the effects on those, and the synths are sounding pretty good all of a sudden. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the drum
the circuit's
samples,
really cool just because it's got that Novation, like it's like a pared down version of the Ultranova engine, and I love that synth. Like I have my Ultranova right next to me. I love that synth. The circuits, man, I love gear that you could just sit on a couch with. You know what I mean? And the fact that it has a built-in speaker and you could just sit with it and just go to town. Like I love that stuff.
Well, I bought it accidentally instead of Beat Step Pro, right? Because I just didn't want to buy a Beat Step Pro. I just kept looking at the Beat Step Pro going, I don't fancy this, right? I don't fancy it. So I got straight off. I got loads ordered and I couldn't press go. So I had a cup of coffee, put YouTube on and saw this circuit. And then within a week I'd got two, Ken. I was like, this is the best jamming mobile DJ setup thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So while we've got the conversation going about anniversaries, I just thought I'd flag this comment for you, Ken. Triple-8 Berg's 16-year anniversary, the size of your modular, she's a keeper. I just thought I'd say that. And Lucas...
You got him coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, what more do you want?
I also wanted to mention, while we're talking about circuit and DrumBrutes, Lucas saying that they layer together very well. So there you go. We're getting some nice comments from the guys in the chat room. So guys in the chat room, don't forget. Let me just grab this back up. Don't forget to talk about your favourite drum machine. I noticed there's been a lot of jokes about drummers in there, which are absolutely hilarious. Like, I think Daz is running
iPad drum machines.
Daz is running the drum jokes at the moment. But don't forget to tell us what your favourite drum machine is that you own, and flag it, and we can have a chat about it too. If you might have something a little bit sort of
what about this?
Out of the ordinary.
You guys ever use one of these?
So, no.
Let me show you this.
What's he showing us?
You ever use this?
Yes, I've
got
one.
With an iPad?
Yeah, I've got one.
This is really fun with the iPad, man. Like it's pretty darn cool. Like, to be honest with you, the one thing that I really wish the iPad version of Spark had is the full VST. There's a modular inside of Spark. A lot of people I don't think are aware of that, and you can do some really crazy synthesis inside of Spark, the VST, but they never put the modular inside of the iPad.
The iPad, yeah. But I'll give you a little pro tip. You can get yourself one of these things. It's called... actually, I don't know if I'm going to be able to lift it up without disconnecting stuff. Let's give it a go anyway. Here we go. Get yourself one of these things. Microsoft Surface.
Yep, I use one.
And this is an old one. This is a Surface Pro 4. And I've just dropped the stylus on the floor. This will run...
You can get those for like $600 US right now. Like a really well-spec'd one, like a 4. Yeah,
this is a well-spec'd one. This actually used to belong to my son, who has, every 3 years, I think, they have to recycle through their computers. And you just give the school $100 and they'll give you the old one. Now, this runs Ableton. and I've actually done videos on this. So this runs Ableton. It runs Ableton really well on there, and you can. It's got a single USB port in there. You could chuck your Spark in there, and you'd actually have all of the stuff that you just mentioned running off of
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I use so I have an older one than that, and my daughter has a 4. And she's 13 and she's getting into drawing and whatnot. That's why she has it. But one cool thing is in my modular, I have a it's called an ES8, which is like an audio interface. And I'll use like reactor blocks, and I have drum machines that I've built inside of that, and I can, work with it that way. But there was a lot of talk in there about BeatStep Pro, and so my modular drum machine, the main drum sequencer on it is my BeatStep Pro, but then I pair my BeatStep Pro with what's called a Trigger Riot, and the Trigger Riot lets you do really non-traditional sequencing. So you can do lots of like chance and probability and randomization, and you can do step style sequencing on it, but it's really fun to come up with happy accidents. So I pair the two of those together. So like my hi-hats might be coming from the Trigger Riot, which gives me like these kind of evolving movements and that sort of thing going on, as opposed to just like you can get some randomization on the BeatStep Pro, but it'll randomize like kind of like the whole beat.
It's kind of like an algorithm, I feel. I don't think it's true randomization. It's kind of, it does have a rhythmic.
So it is, and I
can
tell you what it is. So what it is it depends on how many notes you put into a sequence. It will either take away or add, right? So if you're below 50%, it's going to add notes in, and if you're above 50%, it's going to take notes away, right? What's cool about that is you can do like, let's say you do a 4 on the floor kick pattern, right? And then on your 5 and 9, you do your snare, right? If you randomize from there, it'll make it sound musical, like, because you're hitting these specific triggers, but then you're adding in extra notes on top of that. So you'll kind of always have these specific moments that'll hit, so everything will stay kind of in line. And then so I'll often do like a 4 on the floor kick, and then my hi-hat, I'll just put like 2 hi-hat triggers in there and then let that randomize, and you'll get some really interesting patterns out of it that way.
Right. Okay, well, we've got, we're talking about kind of different drum machines. Andrew Brooks has mentioned that he owns a Volca Beats and 2 Electribes. He doesn't really like the Beats, but he loves the drums on the Electribes and how he's loaded quite a lot of, I think, where'd that comment go? I think it's cut off. I don't know, it's even cut off on here. So I don't know what the rest of that comment was. You might want to type that again. But I think samples might have been what you were trying to say. While we're talking about Electribes, I did mention that probably my second favorite drum machine is an Electribe. And I've had this Electribe for, I reckon it would be close to 21 years, 20 years. Be somewhere around there. I'm sure it was late 90s.
That's the original rhythm one, right? That's the MK1?
This is the ER1. This is the Electride Ribbon ER1. Now, this is really, really, really intuitive as a drum machine. So basically, it's like a VA synth, but it's based, like synthesis based on manipulating the drum sounds with, all the features in it. The other one that I don't like so much, but I kind of started with early days, is the sampler that they brought out. This is the ES Mark II.
Yeah, I always wanted one of those.
Yeah. Now, the thing about this one is you can see how old this is. It's got a...
Smart media, right?
Yeah, look at those. Now, those things, what is that?
School.
How many meg is that?
32 megabytes?
32 meg, wow. That thing, I don't even know how much that thing would be worth, but it'd be worth a penny, that card. So, because they're hard to get now. Now, I've heard people talk about the old gear that's got the old media cards in them, and they're finding them really, really hard to get. So, I know that one still works, but I went to eBay, I don't know, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and I remember trying to get some more of them, and it was like insane. Like $60 US per card. Like, it was getting crazy. they're only, like I said, 33 megs, $60 a card. It's just getting out of control. Now, why do I like the Electribe? I think it's to do with the way you program it. I think like Andrew was kind of saying, it's very immediate. Like it's a bit like you guys were saying about the Tempest, even with the I forget what you mentioned, that you kind of program it and you can keep going as you're programming. So you're kind of layering sounds as you go, and I do like just the workflow of the Electribe. Now, I will admit, I do have the latest Electribe, which is the sampler, and Korg left a few features out on that, and it's a little bit disappointed that they did. But having said that, they also improved a whole stack of other stuff on there as well. So it is actually pretty good, inexpensive way to get yourself into a drum machine and a sampler is to go for the Electribe 2 sampler, and now they're pretty cheap now. And the other cool thing about them too is they have CV on them. They've got, it's got a massive synth engine in it. So check out the Electribes anyway. If you're watching this and thinking, what's a good drum machine to start with? Definitely the Electribes are worth checking out. I don't know what Ken's doing, but making a lot of noise there. So
sorry about that.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Probably, yeah. Andrew's saying it's the easy workflow.
Because I wanted to show something.
Yeah, show for it. Go for it.
Hey, I wanted to tell you just another quick tip, because I saw there was like comments about the DrumBrute and the RD8, and we were talking about processing. Yep. There's a really cool feature of the RD808 or RD8 it was really just smart decision to do that I wish the DrumBrutes had done is there's an insert point on them, right? So that you can actually mix the signal back in. So if you're using your DrumBrute and you're sending out, you need a mixer, right? Whereas with the RD8, you don't actually need that, because what you can do is like you can send your stuff out to a pedal and then come back to the insert input on it, the return on it, and it mixes it back in with your main signal. And I think that's fantastic. So
yeah, I do too. I actually think Arturia needed to put with all of their Brute synthesizers. This was actually kind of your scratch your head moment. If you've heard of that, haven't you, Ken? When someone does something and you think, why did they leave this feature out? All of the Brute synthesizers had audio inputs in them. And then they brought the DrumBrute out, and it doesn't have an audio input in it. And I just thought,
and the first one didn't have a distortion either.
Didn't have the distortion either, yeah, which was just crazy. Although I have to admit, I'm not a massive fan of the distortion circuit in the Impact. It's not, I don't know.
I was literally just setting it up for you.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look anyway, because if you've got the Impact there, you can show us the distortion.
So this is why this is my favorite like analog kick drum in a basic system like this.
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
It's obviously not going to quite compare versatility wise to something like a Rhythm Mk2, but just for raw analog sound. And man, my camera got like really blurry when I did that, huh? Let me see if I can't fix that. Hold on, sorry.
It's not too bad.
Yeah. I can fix it though. I can make it better. And we'll do where are we at? Advanced.
Yep. Are you doing? Is it a Logitech or something? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. And then we'll maybe not. That's about as good as it's gonna get for now. Anyway. But yeah, what I was gonna say though is like that it has a kind of compression in the circuit already. So like you can go crazy low, and I'm pretty sure that's coming through direct audio, right? You guys can hear that?
We can hear it.
Yeah, I can hear that.
And then the snare is kind of like, it's a very particular snare. Like you're either gonna love it or hate it.
Yeah,
but then you have the two different colors.
Do your snare again. Now do mine.
Oh, that's the other. I'm sorry. So hold on. This is why I brought this up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The whole reason why I brought this up is I kind of wanted to just show you something different and interesting on the show.
Yep.
So this is actually not technically a DrumBrute Impact in the production sense. This is a prototype, and it has ever so slight differences to it. So the kick drum in this one is actually a little bit more gnarly, like it's a little bit more gritty than the original. So if you listen to this one, do you have an Impact there?
I don't have an Impact, no. I've only got a standard DrumBrute.
It has a fairly smooth sound to it, but mine is a little bit more like aggressive sounding.
Yep.
Because this was like a earlier version. But if you listen, I mean, it goes so crazy low. And that punch, that kick sound,
yep.
The beater sound on the kick, most analog drum machines, that's more like clicky almost.
Yeah.
And on the Impact, it's just very beefy sounding. So I just really love that kick. And a good friend of mine did a lot of the patterns in it too, which is nice. So,
it sounds absolutely nothing the same as the kick from the original DrumBrute. So this is the original DrumBrute kick. And I'll just make sure I'll turn off the let me just go to my screen so you can see. So I've turned off, you can see that doesn't say active, it's not lit up, so that's active, which means the drive's on. So I've turned it off, so it's just the kick sound. Can you guys hear the difference? Now I can make the Impact side of it. See, that's what you get that.
Yeah, and that's sound. A more traditional Impact.
Now I can decay it a bit. Now that's at the lowest pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, now you go show yours again. It would have been nice
if that went down an octave lower.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, even just a couple of semitones, even just a couple of semitones would have been fine.
The good thing about that though is when you sample that kick drum and you drop the pitch, which is what a lot of people were doing on those classic records, it sounds huge.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So do yours again. Just do your Impact one again. Yeah. Have you got the drive turned on? Have you got the drive turned on, or it's clean?
No, I don't. No,
okay, cool.
That's what I was saying. Is mine is a bit more aggressive. Hold on, let me actually turn this down a little bit though. So there we go.
Yep.
And then you have the color, which is the overdrive. You can turn that on.
Yep.
And then you have the distortion. You can turn that on. So there's that, and if you're
they're just two completely different drum machines, aren't they? I mean,
I will say that
if we're fair, they look similar, right? But they sound both completely like the snare sounds different, the clap sounds different too, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. So and mine's not even labeled that way, if I recall. Mine's labeled completely different. What was it? So mine was snare 2, and it's like body and something else like.
Oh yeah. Are they so? What's the story with the sounds? Are they all analog, or is there some digital samples in there as well?
No, this is all analog.
Analog.
The only thing that's digital in this is the sequencer. And that's the other thing I was going to say is that the sequencer of the Impact is absurdly fun and quick, and it's basically the same sequencer that's in your in the original DrumBrute as well. But for some reason, I can't put my finger on it. It's just I like making beats on this one more. Like it's just really fun and quick, and it's just. It's absurd, man. I really like it.
I can tell you what it is. So look at see where all your sequence buttons are. They're actually kind of nice. They're sort of almost like the right spacing. Yeah. Now, if you look at mine, you'll see there's big gaps between each of the sequence buttons. So it's almost like it's double the space, isn't it? Because they've got to fill up that space. The Impact is probably 2/3 of the width of this. It's a smaller unit, so. For me, it's probably just the layout, really, isn't it?
But don't you think that's half of drums is laying them out live as quick as possible?
Yep.
Because it's
absolutely.
like an instant thing, isn't it?
I think so, and I think
if the flow isn't right.
It's about the muscle memory, isn't it?
Well, and the other thing is like, yeah, just being able to copy your pattern and like make it longer, that sort of thing. It's just so fast and easy on this thing that I don't know. To me, this thing is just super fun to create patterns on. And when you look at like the RD8, it's also really fun to make patterns on, but it's a totally different feel and vibe when you're doing it, because on this thing, you're using your pads and you're kind of like, you can play it in and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Whereas on the RD8, you're hitting the trigger button, or you're
sequencing it. Yeah.
Here, it's just a different vibe, and they like all these drum machines have their own quirks, and they all kind of inspire you in different ways,
So I've got a question, all right? And this question is probably, it's probably relative, because I've held on to this DrumBrute thinking to myself, well, I paid for it. I don't like to buy gear that I, want to move it on for whatever reason. I actually like this drum machine. It's actually quite, like I've mentioned before, I like it. But having said that, I actually really like the impact as well. And I think, so my question is am I doubling up if I have a DrumBrute and a DrumBrute impact? Should I sell the DrumBrute and get the impact? What would you do? What would be your advice?
Well, I'm not the right person to ask, because I hate selling gear. I'm a hoarder. Like I just get gear and I keep it.
I'm the same.
And I'm also a sound designer. So like, keep in mind, like I'm not. One thing that I try to tell people is I constantly am hearing people saying like, oh man, I wish I had all the gear that you have and I would be producing all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, honestly, the more gear you have, kind of like the less music you make. I'm much more of the mindset of like, when I'm in album making mode, give me like 3 or 4 pieces of gear and then put everything else away, because it's just distraction, Yeah. So, but from a sound design perspective, like I'm making sound packs and that sort of thing, I'm constantly like, my place is a mess. I'm constantly patching things to other things. I need to be making new and different sounds. So for me, it's like the DrumBrute impact, all the drums that are in this are totally different drums. Like they're not the same sounds that are in a
different drum machine,
in the DrumBrute. So for me, it's like, and it's so affordable, like it's really low priced. I'm like, dude, just buy it, keep them both, and enjoy them both.
So I think you're the same as me in the sense that I hoard, and I mean I do get rid of some gear, but usually it's because I just don't need it. And so, but what I was talking about before is this is kind of my setup that I use when I want to make music. So I've recently made tracks. If you follow me on social media, you'll know that I've been putting tracks out. They're on Spotify and things like that. Most of the gear that I make the tracks on is from here, but I have got like so much gear in the closet here, and I've got more gear behind me. So it would be a distraction to have it all out, and you would constantly be fiddling too much and not producing enough tunes. So for me, I do love having the gear, but at the same time, I like to be able to put it away. And then just because you put it away doesn't mean you don't love it. You're putting it away because it's not at the moment, it's not being used for that purpose, but then you'll get it out again later. Like the other day, I was talking about the Korg Radius, right? I think Ken, you might even remember me talking about it. I am actually thinking of selling it because I don't use it. And then I actually made a track with it on there. And now all of a sudden I'm thinking, I'm not going to sell it. Because when I actually made the track, it wasn't the fact that I made the track that I want to keep it, because it's a digital synth, so you could recreate it, with a VST probably. But it's the relationship that I formed with it when I made that track that kind of, it said to me, no, you need to keep this synth. This is something that gelled with the way you work. It gelled with the workflow, and so you keep it. But on the flip side, I actually recently sold an OP1, and I got absolutely slaughtered for doing it. Like, there were memes made about me about selling OP1. You should see the memes that are out there at the moment. Like, I'm a fanboy and I sold my OP1. Whatever the memes, like, you don't know how to use an OP1, so you sold it. I had the OP1 since 2014. It's appeared in many videos. It's appeared in many tracks. I used the thing to death, and I sold it because I felt that the technology of the OP1 is slipping away from me. I felt that I was needing something more technologically capable than what that thing was able to perform, and I felt there's software that can do it. There's MPC Live. There's so many things out there now that can just kill it. And yeah, it's cute. It's portable. It's got some really cool things about it. And I don't ever say anything bad about it. But because I sold it, it doesn't mean that I don't love it. So I do get rid of gear. And yeah, it has to be a really good reason though for me. And the reason why I sold my OP1 was because I wasn't using it, and I needed to spend the money on the software that you are using right now, because it cost me $1,000 US to buy this software that enables me to do all this cool stuff with the streaming. So for me, my stream is now my OP1. Its ghost lives on through my stream.
The
See,
OP1
is so bad. Sorry, Ken.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say I'm the opposite. So I know Ken doesn't sell anything. But in my real life, I'm a bit of a hoarder. So when I started having things on boxes underneath the tables, that's when I started to sell stuff. But unfortunately, not all the money does go back in the studio. When you sell stuff, you go, I'm going to put this back in the studio. But it doesn't always go that way. But I quite like having less, you know what I mean? Because I'm not a sound designer, because I'm in that making a jam live kind of thing.
It gets in the way. It really, really does get in the way when you have all that gear. It's like, well, for me personally, I have ADD, and clinically diagnosed ADD for all my life, and I can honestly say it's difficult for me to stay on task if I'm staring. Like, for instance, I've got a Hydrasynth directly in front of me and a Matrix Brute right next to me. When I come in to here and I'm like, oh, today I have to work on something. I love making patches. It's like, I love sound designing. It's just one of my favorite things to do in the world. And if I have something else to do, I come in and dude, my Hydrasynth automatically powers on when I come in here, and it's the biggest distraction in the world. I get nothing done. I just sit there and I'm making polyphonic aftertouch patches, and I'm just like,
you know what though?
I spent 2 hours doing that when I was supposed to be doing this.
That synth is going. I reckon that synth's going to win synth of the year. I really do. The Hydrasynth is going to win synth of the year. I think that synth is amazing. Yeah, it really is. It's brilliant.
I don't want to talk too much about it because I've talked about it so much that I people are probably just like, shut up about it.
Nah, don't shut up about it.
Well, I absolutely love it.
It's gonna appear here. I know you can buy them and they're starting to ship now. So if you are interested,
they're shipping now. Yeah,
yeah, it's a good time to get one. But for me, I'm just gonna get the desktop because I don't need the keys.
I tell you what, if you have the desktop, one thing I would say is if you have any older synths that have polyphonic aftertouch, pair it up with it. And if you don't have anything that has polyphonic aftertouch, the pads do send polyphonic aftertouch. But if you want to play it from like a regular MIDI controller, you want to remember that it's not like there's monophonic aftertouch and then polyphonic aftertouch. And the modulation destinations are not the same, right? So you may have to go into some of your patches and be like, oh, okay, well, I want more expressive sound on this sound, and look at the mod matrix and see what's set to polyphonic aftertouch, and you may want to change that to monophonic aftertouch so it works better with your monophonic aftertouch keyboard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a MIDI controller that's got polyphonic aftertouch. Yep. I think I've got one. I think so. But yeah,
the old Handsonic stuff is all polyphonic aftertouch. Like I have a SQ80 behind me.
Yep.
That's polyphonic aftertouch. The VFX, I know a lot of people use those. They're polyphonic aftertouch. I think the EPS was
the ESQ1. Is the ESQ1?
Yeah. Wait, no, it's not.
I think the SQ80 was the first one, wasn't it? Yeah. I've got an ESQ1.
And it's got a really weird. It's got a really weird sensor setup in it. Like when I got my SQ80, I completely refurbished it myself, and it's actually the keys are there's magnets in there that get closer to the circuit board, and that's how it senses the polyphonic aftertouch. Like there's like a foam pad, and then so like you press the key, and then it hits the foam pad, and then if you squish the foam pad, the magnet gets closer to the PCB, and that's how it senses polyphonic aftertouch, which is totally different from how the Hydrosynth does it.
Yeah, and I think the CS80 did it differently again as well. They had that. They had that mechanical connection that if you ever pull a CS80 apart, you'll never be able to put it back together again. It's one of those things. Yeah. Wow. I just had a look at the time. Have we been streaming for 2 hours? I think we. Sorry.
I talk too much. I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. 1 hour and 45 minutes. That is amazing. And I didn't. This is the first time I've looked at the clock, thinking, okay, wow. And
it's only half our record runs. We were on for 3 hours 3 minutes.
That's true. That's true. Now I don't want to. Cool. I don't want to ignore the chatties because they're awesome people. John Cuba said that Personal Selection's got a Cyclone TT606 DrumBot, TR-8, DFAM. I don't know. I think that is a drum machine. I would say it is a drum machine with, it's a percussion, synthesizer. Let's call it that then. And he's got a modular hex inverter Mutant BDO. Don't know that one. Hex inverter is that to do with Uric, I guess. So that could be that. And what I was going to say is, I worked out how to show the socials now. So yeah, just trying to get up the other comment that Argon 8.
I'm going to try to post my I'll see if I can post my modular grid for my Uric drum machine. I'll post a link in the chat so that they can see what's in there, because I was seeing some questions about that.
Okay, if it doesn't work, just sing out and I'll approve it, because I think it'll probably balk.
Oh, it should.
It's a link. Yeah,
it should.
Good old YouTube.
I think it will. I don't know.
See what it says.
How do I get to my? Right.
I've got moderator turned on, so it should let me approve links. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
So don't judge me for the name of my rack. I just realized the name of it. It's the Flux Drum Rack Sex Top.
Okay.
I build a lot of these racks in here, so like sometimes I just I'm like, oh, I need a name. Let me just come up with a name.
Oh, geez.
All right. How do I do the share thing for that? I guess it's this. Here it is. Copy.
Well, while we're waiting for you to put your comment in, let's see if there's any others.
Maybe this.
888 Berg is saying Octatrack for drums. Yeah. I mean, it's a sampler, so you can put any drums in it. But you're going to have to like the workflow. Octatrack's got a different workflow. So, you may not like the workflow of the Elektron stuff. I actually don't mind it. It's I mean, look, I agree with, if you first touch Elektron stuff, you're going to find it difficult. I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with people who say the screens are too small. I definitely agree with all the negative comments that you hear. But if you persevere with it, and then you start, like Inky talks about muscle memory when she was playing, if you persevere with the Elektron stuff, mate, once you've learnt where knobs and muscle memory and stuff are, it's very intuitive.
Well,
one day it kind of clicks. You go, that makes sense. So
well, I'm kind of I'm with and against you here, because like I understand the digitone. I can just about recording live without making the whole thing stop now, but it's like hard work, right? To me,
yeah.
I get it's geeky, and I get the attraction, and I get that people would get into that. But for me, it's too much thinking. I don't think it'll ever become that intuitive for me. So I know people who are brilliant at them. You know, they've got a Digitact and a Digitone, and they're making tracks. You know, but to me, it's a lot of work. It's interesting. I come up with stuff that I never would on anything else. But
I have to definitely. I'll have to say that the UI on the Elektron gear is probably the most divisive UI I've ever come across. Like people talk about screen diving on Roland gear, and they talk about screen diving on other synths, menu diving, all that sort of stuff. But without a doubt, the Elektron stuff would have to be the most divisive UI as a topic. Do you know what I mean? Like, you hear people hate it, you hear people love it, you hear people indifferent about it. The fact that you've been able to use it, and what you said, you could start something to finish, that's a start. But if you're struggling with it still, maybe you're just not suited to it. It's one of those, I think it's probably a love-hate thing.
Yeah, I get it, and I totally get why people love it, but it feels like programming too much for me.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
My issue with the rhythm is, like, there's some build quality issues that really irk me. For one, like, if you have a Rhythm MK2 in your studio, it's literally louder than my spring reverb. And what I mean by that is, acoustically, it is louder than my spring reverb tank. If I finger drum on top of my spring reverb tank, my spring reverb will rattle less than my Rhythm MK2. Because there's little springs under every single button in there, and they all reverberate, and that drives me insane. There's that, and then there's there's all these like really oddball UI design decisions, like having clear and clear, like you have to do things in a very so, like, you know how on a computer, to delete stuff, you do Control-Alt-Delete, right, to bring up whatever it is, on PC. You have to press that order of buttons, right, in order to do that. That's how a Elektron gear works. So, like, when you clear a pattern, you have to press it in a specific order, or it doesn't work. And that kind of irks the hell out of me.
That's exactly what I'm saying, right? I've had this machine, and it's great, and I love it. I love the sounds out of it. But the combination of presses to live record, if you get it wrong, it stops it, and it seems to be the wrong way round. It seems to be the unintuitive way round to me. So you have to do, I don't know, I think it's function, record, play, or play, stop. I think it is. And if you get it, you have to do it in a certain order. So it's function, play, stop. Well, if you don't get it the right way round, it stops it. But it's little things like that seem clunky and the wrong way round.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was I going to say? I was just kind of listening to you guys, and I just thought to myself, I've had this discussion before, and it actually was the Yamaha RM1X that brought this discussion up. And you guys remember that sequencer, right? The Yamaha RM1. It was like a groove box that Yamaha brought out. I think it was late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And you probably hear a lot of people rave about it as it being, a really good sequencer. You can use it. You don't have to use the internal sounds. You can use it to sequence either gear. If you're going to start with a sequencer, go with this. These are cheap. You can get them online, blah, blah, blah. I bought one probably around the turn of the millennium, 2000, somewhere around there. Had it for years, and I sold it, and it was one of those products that I just tried my little heart out to try and get to love, and I never found the love, never ever found it. It was kind of maybe Inky, maybe a bit like you with your Elektron relationship, I don't know, but for me, RM1X, sorry for all the Yamaha fans out there, I didn't gel with it. I just didn't like it. So I think
the Yamaha stuff was also known for being kind of like menu divey and like Yamaha as a brand is known for that. Like like their synths, all that kind of stuff is just known for, like, it's just their way of working,
But having said that, I showed on the stream just recently, and you remember we showed the AN200. the little Groovebox thing that's the AN1X sound engine in it. There's also a DX200, same thing. That is actually really intuitive in terms of using, and I've managed to, you know, make tracks out of that thing. So completely different to the way the RM1X works. Completely different. So whoever designed that, you know, maybe they were a temp.
And that engine, I think, is one of the ones in one of the refaces, actually, isn't it? I think it's like the CS or something like that. Is actually that engine packaged.
It's similar, yeah. So,
which I banged on those refaces when they first came out. I was like, "What is this crap?" And now I'm like, "Man, I played the electric piano one and the DX, and I like both of those a lot."
Yeah. So you know, I've got a CS.
Again, it gets back to me being cheap.
I've got a CS, and I got it cheap. So same as the Electron pedal. I got it when it was on sale. That was the best time to get the reface stuff. But if you ever want to know who does reface really well, he was on the stream a couple of weeks ago. That's Berg. You know, the Swedish guy. So he's got the keys, the DXs, and the CPs. I think the piano one as well.
The CP it sounds so cool, man.
Beautiful.
And again, it gets back to like something that you can just sit on the couch with, and I love that.
Yeah.
Like the that Jupiter XM. I have zero interest in the Jupiter X, the big boy version, but the Jupiter XM, the price point makes me want to cry. But I love like the portability of that thing, of having the speaker built in, and I can just throw batteries in it and just jam out. Like, I want one, but I'm not willing to pay $1,400 for that.
That's why I got the JDXi. No. Do you remember that when the JDXi first came out? I thought to myself, this is cool. This is an analog synth, and it's a digital synth. It's 2-part digital, and it's a drum machine. And I've still got it. It's still great. So, you know, there are some little sort of mini synths that are out there that just kill it.
While I was working on an early version of the Hydrasynth, so this would have been like, I want to say back like maybe last June or something like that. I bought the JDXA, and I specifically bought it because I was like, well, for one, I got it for dirt cheap, and for two, I was like, this thing has so many flaws and quirks in it that it's never gonna catch on, but it's just so weird, and like it's designed so quirky that I was like, you know what? 10 years from now, people are going to be like, oh, I wonder about that thing, you know? So it's kind of just been sitting on a shelf right now, but it can make some amazing sounds, but the user interface in it is horrible. Yeah. And it's built pretty bad too. Like, it's built really bad.
Yeah, I've always wanted to get one, and I know they don't make them anymore, so you have to get one secondhand now, right? So unless there's some box sitting in a warehouse that
I'm sure that there's boxes of them sitting somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think they sold very well.
Yeah, it's like when I got my Phaser Moog pedal. I found it in a box in a warehouse somewhere miles away, and I ended up buying it. And then about 2 weeks later, Moog said, "We're not making these anymore," and now they're worth like 3 times the price. You never know. Sit on your JDXA, you could sell it in about 2 years, and it'll probably be worth like 3 times the price you paid for it. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just a really strange synthesizer, so, you know. And no data wheel, and no way to scroll through 200 plus waveforms without just pressing the button.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Such a bad design.
They need to make
such a bad design.
My God.
They need to make some sort of manager for that, don't they?
Survive. That would not survive with me. After 30
I'm not sure,
patches,
Yeah.
There's a company that makes like these patch editors for the iPad, and I'm not sure if they've done one yet or not. Like, I'm really hoping that they do one for that, because that would be brilliant. But the JDXA just has like all these weird things. Like, they ran the analog channel cables. Like, so there's analog boards in there and there's digital boards. They ran the cables directly across the CPU. So you get all this noise and stuff in there, and like design-wise, but at the same time, it's like it's so quirky.
Can you move the cables, or is it kind of like?
I did see some guy was like doing some extensive mods, but I haven't had time to open mine up to try and modify it.
There's a guy that wrote the JDXi manager, and I helped him out by doing some videos featuring it. So if you've ever watched the videos on how to use the JDXi manager, it was probably me that did it. We should hit him up and see if he wants to do the JDXA, because he knows all about getting into the NPRN side of Roland's gear. He reverse engineered all of the JDXI stuff, so that none of it was documented, and he actually sat there and he played all the stuff with a MIDI monitor, and he's reverse engineered everything. So, you know, he's got the patience to do that. You know, you never know, you might be able to hit him up. There's definitely enough JDXA people out there to justify it. So I would say
Axelsoft in the chat is saying that he's written his own patch tools for the JDXA.
You hit him up.
I'm
yeah.
definitely interested to hear more about that.
Hit up Axel. He's pretty.
Hey guys,
he's pretty
I'm gonna have to hop off of here soon.
We do. Yeah, we're just about to wrap it off. Yeah, we're about to wrap it up. Don't worry. Yeah. So thank you very much, Ken, for joining us on the stream. It was really, really nice to have you. And as I say to everyone who comes on the stream, you know, you're always welcome here, so you can come back whenever you want.
Oh, awesome.
If you want to come back regularly, you're more than welcome to do that. I know you're busy, but
thank you guys for coming into my streams as well, and I definitely need to have you guys come over that way too. So
yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Inky, as well. Thanks, Inky, for joining us, of course. Always love having you, Inky, on here. Inky just makes this show what it is. And also thanks to everyone on the chat. So just a quick look at everyone on the chat there. So I didn't get to say hello to everyone, but you know who you guys are. You're always regular and also awesome. Love having you on. So well, we'll just wrap it up. We'll say goodbye to everybody and wish you all a nice week. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be back next week, so do check out the YouTube post that comes up when the stream is on. It should be normal time this week. I know this week was about half an hour delayed, but that was because I was watching the Liverpool game with my mate who we only get about 2 games we can watch here in Australia live because they're so late at night, and Inky will understand what I'm talking about because, you know, if they have an early game, you know, we get to watch it. So anyway,
as a Manchester City fan, I don't.
Well, Manchester City aren't doing too well this year. All right,
Shuri wants to say hi.
Oh, you can
say hi, Shuri. No,
wants to lick your face. Yeah, all right, everybody.
She's good.
Let's wave goodbye. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. See you later.